Hello everyone, and welcome again. In this episode, I'm going to go into the Merkabah. And what is the Merkabah? The title here, the Merkabah Light Vehicle and Ascension. And it is part of Ascension, we could say. Though Ascension comes in many different ways, and it's in many different forms. There is, of course, obtaining the rainbow light body, like they talk about in Tibet. There is going to a new earth, a higher density of consciousness. But what I say is the form that we forget about a lot is just raising our frequency in the earthly experience. And this is part of the path onto what we could say full-blown ascension. Some it takes many lifetimes. Some they're able to obtain it quite quickly. Some are here in this lifetime to do that. And this is where I say everyone is on their own journey. Not everyone's going to go through it. We're all going to feel the ramifications of going into a higher state of consciousness. But some will go higher than others, and it's not about who's better or not. Everyone's got their own individual journey. With that said, Merkabah is spelt slightly different. Sometimes it's got the H on the end, sometimes it doesn't. So if doing research on this, just be aware of that. And there is another way that it's spelt as well, which I will go into. Now, Merkabah is two tetrahedrons. So you can see in this image here, there's two three-dimensional tetrahedrons, one up, one down, and they rotate opposite ways. Now, most of my experiences with the Merkabah and tuning into it and working with it has come from experience, also working with the Elohim, along with a host of other entities as well, which are working for what I call the light. What I would say is that it's basically a geometric structured light form that is over the physical body. It's always there. It's a part of what we are on a non-physical level. And when it comes time to work with it in a cohesive manner, the time is right. And that's done through a lot of inner work and other things I'll explain. And there is some point form notes here that I want to go into that I did add, just short things that I think would be of benefit to those looking into ascension, inner development, self-mastery, what have you. A lot of tuning into it, these practices have to do with being in a surrendered state. Being in the heart is absolutely key, and it allows one to be a vehicle for God. A process I have every day is waking up, and besides having gratitude, the first thing I go into after that is saying to God, verbally and with my intention, and through a practice that I have of saying to God, Source Creator, how can I be a vehicle for you to work through today? Whether it's blessing the world, helping somebody, whatever it is. And I think that once you're in that state, and you can be operating in a state like that, your life can transform quite dramatically with a lot of positive opportunities that will present themselves. Doesn't mean we won't have trials and tribulations and things of that nature, but when in a service to others state and also doing the inner work, dramatic change comes, but first there needs to be a purging of that which no longer serves you. Also, going into the Merkabah, it's a trans-dimensional vehicle, part of the ascension process, and allows one to access many realms. It is a vehicle that we can go through the many realms with. A lot of people think that most of what's going on is of a 3D nature, meaning crafts landing, beings getting out, and we can physically see them. Yes, there is that going on. I've shown a lot of that myself over the years, and there's many other people out there that have experienced a physical nature with other forms of intelligences. But predominantly, which it took a long time for me to get my head around, because it wasn't just one contact experience or one type of being, was the multidimensional nature of the universe. Some of these beings interfacing with us, yes, may come from another planet, another star system, galaxy, or a complete different realm. They have the capability of traveling in their Merkabah, and I'll show you some footage of this soon. They also have the capability that they can communicate with you because time and space they're operating out of at a certain level of consciousness, to where anywhere they are, they can project a thought to you and you can have telepathic communication. On top of that, some of these master beings could be meditating or somewhere else and also bilocate or project a physical form of them in your presence, even though they're not really there. It's a projection. It's a form that they're manifesting in front of you that's like a mirror version of them while they're somewhere else. This is the stuff that doesn't get spoken about a lot. Going back into the Merkabah is also a part of the process to consciously connect with the Godhead, the self-source that we all are. So when you're working in a state with the Merkabah and obtaining that state of consciousness to be able to do that, you can't access that which you don't have the level of consciousness to perceive, understand, and connect with. And that's why some people say rape and murder, these things will never be dissolved on earth. Well, I beg to differ with the fact that the way I see things is that if you're operating at a higher state of consciousness, you wouldn't do those things. And that's why with a higher state of consciousness as stepping stones, you might get exotic technologies that could do mega destruction, but you wouldn't do it because you're not at that level of consciousness that you would do that to another. So basically it's connecting coherently to the photon robe we all have that encapsulates every molecule, allowing one to go into an ascended state and at the most advanced level can transport the physical vessel, or at very least in a vision state and a replica of your Merkabah, you can divide it and travel places, allowing one to travel the universe. Nothing's black, nothing's white. There is such a grey area even working with the Merkabah. I guess what I'm trying to describe here is that we are light, and we actually go beyond light to a vibratorial state, to a wave function, and then we go beyond that and we're actually plugged into source. I hope this is just digestible what I'm saying, because this is a lot of stuff I really don't talk about because it's taken me some time to try and get somewhere with being able to explain some of this information and what I experienced, but I just hope it's understandable somewhat. With that said, the Merkabah should be taken serious, and for some to reconnect with it takes years, and in some cases lifetimes of work, but intention is key, inner development and self-mastery. So something that you just can't step into overnight. Some may. It's like with some of the techniques I work with people with, they are better than me instantly. Some it takes a bit of time and they can end up better than me still. Some it just takes time and they still get there, but it takes a longer amount of time. But we all have the capability of not just working with the Merkabah, but with psychic abilities, thought transfer, communication with what some would deem as the other side, but there's variations of that. A warning with this is that paranormal and light phenomena can be a byproduct when having experiences with higher intelligences, through the mind's eye, by telepathy, and even physically from the highest state one can access through their Merkabah. There is an aspect where you will have paranormal phenomena happen around you. It could even be for a just split second, light flashes around you. That could actually be the Merkabah. It could even be other intelligences, spirit guides and what have you, trying to assist you with your development with it. Because it's a very serious thing. This stuff is not to be taken lightly, and it can drive some people insane if they don't know or are not, what we could say, read in on a soul level and really thinking about what they're doing before they step into something like this, the ramifications. It could cause destruction within their life. Partly just, we could say, like the awakening experience, that you start to lose friends and family and then new people come into the picture. But that phase of losing the old, stepping into the new, it's quite lonely and quite emotional journey for everyone that goes through it in their own way. So with this, a balance of science, inner science, and understanding the mechanics of the body, as well as spiritually being open and being one with the Creator, are keys to unlocking what we are capable to attain, or what I say is really reconnect with. Because it's there. Everyone has one, but when you start working with it, it's like the time's right. Even though time's an illusion, the timing is right energetically for you to be stepping into that. Because we all come down, we could say, the planes and dimensions to experience everything within source, and then we go back up. And a lot of souls here at this time have already done all this, but they're back here to assist humans with raising their consciousness, because what's going on here is affecting not just the universe in a physical level, but on a multi-dimensional level as well, which I'll go into further sometime as well. So looking into this, pure intention and a loving heart can unlock this information in one's subconscious, bringing forth the Ascension journey, directives and exercises as well. Knowledge and wisdom are keys to rightfully and responsibly working with one's Merkabah. With any of these abilities that one obtains and does through the inner work, it's not to be something that you're a show pony about or disrespect. It's to be taken very serious. I've got to say that. So what I want to explain here is that, and in no way am I belittling any extraterrestrials, but what we have as a situation is that, in my opinion and through my experiences, if we look at, let's say, reality is 100%, there's 100% here, goes up to here. The bottom 5% would be us and what I deem as extraterrestrials, even with higher density of consciousness. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of these extraterrestrials, no matter how far evolved they seem, they are still on their ascension journey as well. It doesn't mean you just reach it overnight and you're full-blown ascended. There is a process in place, and a lot of these races are still in a process of getting to that next level. Once you get past that 5%, there is another 90% of realms of what I call thought form realms. It is amazing in the sense of, I'm not talking about planets, stars, none of that exists unless that's what that realm wants to project. And once you get past that, you get to what I call the geometric light realms. Now, the geometric light realms is going to the last 5% before you hit the blueprint of Source and you're resonating with Source itself. And this is what we could say is the celestial kingdoms, the angelic kingdoms, or the angelic collective. It's very much what I call and describe as like a kaleidoscope realm of different forms of fractal geometry and beings coming in and out of it. Now, looking at this and just trying to get some different perspectives, which I try to do with everything. When I looked at the Britannica online, what they've got here is Merkabah as Merkava. This is a Hebrew word for chariot, also spelled Merkabah with the H, the throne or chariot of God as described by the prophet Ezekiel. It became an object of visionary contemplation for early Jewish mystics. Merkava mysticism began to flourish in Palestine during the 1st century AD, but from the 7th to the 11th century, its center was in Babylonia. Merkava mystics probably experienced ecstatic visions of the celestial hierarchies and the throne of God. In Merkava mystical literature, the ascent of the visionary soul is described as a perilous journey through 7 spheres or heavenly dwellings, manned by hostile angels. The visionary's goal was to behold the divine throne situated on its chariot. Merkava mysticism was strongly influenced by Gnostic beliefs. Merkava initiates, limited to a select few with specific moral qualities, were required to prepare themselves by fasting. A successful visionary journey depended in part on the use of certain magical formulas called seals that were used to placate the angelic gatekeeper of each heavenly dwelling. The use of an incorrect seal could result in severe injury or a fiery death. The Talmud warns that among 4 men who engaged in Merkava, 1 died, 1 went mad, 1 apostatized, and only Rabbi Akiba ben Joseph had a true visionary experience. Those who practiced Merkava were sometimes called explorers of the supernatural world. Gerhard Shalom, a modern Jewish scholar of mysticism, suggests that the words may have implied a descent into the depths of self. The oldest literary sources of the movement are 2 Hercolot texts, lesser attributed to Rabbi Akiba and the greater to Rabbi Ishmael ben Elijah. The Book of Enoch and the Shir Koma belong to this same tradition. The latter contains highly exaggerated anthropomorphic descriptions of God. But to add to that, the Merkabah even goes back to Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, even off-world to the Pleiadians, Syrians, Arcturians, Andromedans, Lyrians, Orions, plus many others local in this area are far and beyond this realm. It's a trans-dimensional universal vehicle, and it's known by many that they may have their own terms or ways of, we could say, explaining it, but they're really all explaining the same thing. Other names that represent Merkabah: vehicle, light body and light vehicle. So here we have the Star of David. Now, it's just very close to what we could say is the Merkabah. When we go into some of the Tibetan mandalas, we have what we could describe as the Merkabah, and these people are having intense meditation, we could say sessions, and having a lot of inner vision and working with the light body, the Tibetans especially, which I'll be going into shortly on the rainbow light body or the rainbow body. And yeah, there's a lot there to go into as well. Here's another mandala again. And this is what I filmed years ago here in Australia, and this is a being in its Merkava. So that's just a short clip. You can see it flickering, and then when it comes to a stop, the way I describe this is that there's an intelligence appearing as a light being within the flickering light. This was broad daylight. This was taken with a very good camera as well, with a lot of zoom, and it's actually an Andromedan being. This is an analysis done by Jason Gleaves, who I've spoken about before, ex-UK Air Force, aerospace, and he's got UFO only, and he does a lot of image analysis on photos and videos. You can see the field around it, and that's just one frame. So one traditional depiction of the cherubim and chariot vision based on description by Ezekiel. We have in the Bible depictions of the chariot, and chariot is another word for Merkabah. Just some food for thought. And here's some other things that I'll reference, and you make up your own mind with it. Exodus 13:21, and the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud. I've gone into this in depth, going back in 2 episodes. So if I don't want to repeat myself, but this is just again some food for thought, because beings can appear like an apparition, like a cloud, like a mist, like smoky stuff. And I talk about this in depth in those. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. Now what I want to share here is a different perspective of the cloud and the fire. James Gilliland's famous East Seti Ranch. It is a spiritual place that thousands of people flock to, and James is trained in many different modalities with nearly 40 years experience. He's an experiencer himself. We're best friends. He's like a mentor, brother, father to me as well. And he's doing a technique here where he connects with and brings in the beings for people to experience. Now, there can be physical phenomena take place. A lot of people will get visions. They will get thought transfer information coming through, and they'll get sensations on the body. And it's different with each intelligence or group of intelligences that comes through. Now, while he was doing this, this was the Orion Council of Light coming through. And I just felt the energy, and I could see something was going on, but I couldn't see exactly what was going on. And that's a lot of the time how I capture the photos of a lot of different things. In this case, I took a photo, and what you've got is a column like a cloud coming down in the circle there, and there's like a mist over the group. And here, there's probably about 30 people in that group, maybe more, that's in a circle around James, and he always has another person next to him for a process that he does to do this. And here's the original here without the circle. And again, what did we have? A pillar of cloud by day, and at night, a pillar of fire. And again, going back to the Merkabah that I filmed. So in this one, we've got the chariots of God, a myriads, thousands upon thousands. The Lord is among them at Mount Sinai in holiness. Now, what I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to share a story. John Vivanco, who I mentioned in the last episode, a well-known and respected remote viewer, John and I are friends, and he's very good at what he does, and we've done a lot of investigations together. How I met him was at East Seti Ranch when I was in America. And what happened with how he met James, if I remember this correctly, is that John came across a video that was filmed of activity happening on Mount Adams. And he remote viewed it with his team. What he got was, don't quote me, I think it was hundreds, if not 1,000. It sounds ridiculous even more, and it's not ridiculous, but to the average person it will sound it. What he got was hundreds or 1,000 or more line beings structured from light in their Merkabah. And at that time, he didn't even know what a Merkabah was. Well, when he meets James through a series of events, I think he did a video on it, John did at the time. I'm not sure how James found out, but I think it was through a video. James connected to John, and John ended up coming up to the ranch. And what's very interesting from a neutral standpoint is that James has been speaking for years about line beings. And here John, not knowing James or what's behind the activity up there, trying to figure out if it's real activity or if it's a natural phenomena or if there's nothing to it, he independently with his remote viewing team comes up with line beings in their Merkabah. To add to it, James has filmed a lot of stuff and activity on the mountain, coming off it, going onto it. Here's some footage I took, probably about 2014 and 15, of a light exiting the mountain. And the mountain there is Mount Adams. It's about 13,000 feet, and I think it's about 13 miles away, give or take. Give me a bit of leeway there. But I had the camera up at the mountain. You can see some lasers pointing at the mountain and trying to interact with the light that's on there. But this is what I captured. Now, Mount Adams is a very interesting place. It goes back to Kenneth Arnold actually following, I believe it was 9 delta-shaped objects, though he described them flying like flying saucers, that landed on the western slopes of Mount Adams. Well, the view I've got here is the western slope that faces ECETI Ranch. So when you go to ECETI or you look at eceti.org, there is Mount Adams, a beautiful view of it, and the Field of Dreams where everyone skywatches at the ranch. And I really recommend a visit there for spiritual seekers and people wanting to experience the spiritual side of themselves with assistance from the energy of the lands there. And there's different events and workshops and things that go on there as well. So highly recommend it. But I wanted to tie this in because it goes into the Merkabah. John got that there was a lion being, or many lion beings in their Merkabah, and they're really protectors of the mountain. And that mountain in and of itself is what we would describe as a multidimensional extraterrestrial base. There's many different levels to it, depending on the frequency you're on, depends on what comes up if you're remote viewing or meditating with it or interacting with what's there as well. So it's a bit far out, but I've got to tell it like it is. So going on, praise the Lord, my soul, Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed with splendor and majesty. The Lord wraps himself in light as with a garment. He stretches out the heavens like a tent and lays the beam of his upper chambers on their waters. He makes the clouds his chariot and rides on the wings of the wind. He makes winds his messengers, flames of fire his servants. Now here you got God being described as using a cloud as his chariot. And the flames, could they be the angels, which are his servants in their light body? Going into Kings 2:11, as they were going along and talking, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind to heaven. Now in the Bible, God is described a lot of times as a manifestation as a whirlwind. But to add to this, chariot means Merkabah, that's being mentioned here again. Now horses of fire. Could there be some type of beings that look like a horse that are in their light body because they're within a fire? That's what a Merkabah will look like. You can see that from the video. Or is it the angels around the chariot? And whoever's writing this and describing what they're seeing, they're using that metaphor because that's a way that they can describe it in the terminology from their time and day of what they're seeing in the sky, if not fully understanding what's going on. Isaiah 66:15, for behold, the Lord will come in fire, and his chariots like the whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and to rebuke with flames of fire. Again, chariots, Merkabah, and we've got fire. Could it be the Merkabah as well, the physical effect of what people are seeing of the opposing tetrahedrons flickering and spinning around? Other ways Merkabahs can appear. Flickering that quick depending on, I guess, how they're operating with their Merkabah, can depend on how one is going to see the Merkabah. A lot of the time you'll actually see an orb, just a ball of light, which is the effect of the Merkabah just going very hard, just spinning and swirling, doing its thing, while the intelligence is within that and traveling around doing whatever they do. Now, orbs can be many things, not just an appearance of a way of a Merkabah, but beings can send a thought form out of themselves as an orb. It could be elemental, fairy, it could be a drone type device. There's many different things that orbs can be, including nature spirits, and they're connected to Bigfoot sightings as well. So everything has this feel to it somewhat, I'll say. Again, I don't want to just blanket term everything, but in a way that we're talking with intelligences. Here's another orb I filmed going back to 2010 now, and you can see my finger point at it in the camera, and then you see the orb shoot off. In a replay, at extraordinary speeds, it goes from standing still to just shooting off, and that's in infrared. Here's a recent orb of a being in this Merkabah that I filmed going over the home here. You can see it's quite low over the home. There's even an arc of light coming off above it, below it, and to the sides, very faintly, but it's there. And this actually does a maneuver and then eventually disappears. So like I've said, this is a very serious topic, and I don't want people to believe me, but to put this information in their spiritual toolbox. That's all I want anyone to do with this, is to just put it in their spiritual toolbox, use this information, don't, but, you know, at the very least, I just hope people put this in their spiritual toolbox of knowledge, and you transfer that knowledge into wisdom through, we could say, being active and taking that knowledge and doing something with it, which is the wisdom. Now, I do want to say that God speaks to everyone every day. And not just God, our guides, our higher self, through thoughts, ideas, epiphanies, concepts, impressions. And a lot of people have an idea of thought. That is communication sometimes coming from the divine. It doesn't mean you don't have your own thoughts and ideas, but just be aware of that. Just some recommendations here to contemplate on with your own life. How can you be a vehicle for Source to work through, as I was saying before? How can you be of service? And what can you do to bring joy into the life of others and yourself every day? Joy is a frequency that connects us to Source. It's almost like a remembrance of Source, and that frequency, though it may not be 100% of what it is, but it is a frequency of Source. Love, joy, bliss, service to others, the byproducts of those feelings are a remembrance of Source. And so we can get very serious about all these topics because they are serious topics. But like I say to people, ground, have fun, enjoy your life, and what can you do to bring joy into it? We'll leave it there. Thank you for joining me, and blessings.